Alright, I said in the previous video that I was going to make a video on beef jerky and another on biltong, so I'm going to get started here. First off, we'll talk about the differences between jerky and biltong. Basically, with beef jerky, you're going to cut your meat down to actual slices that would be this size of slice that you would eat. And also, jerky is dried under heat. So there is some amount of cooking going on in the jerky process. And also, because it's dried under heat, you could literally, conceivably, start a batch at 8 in the morning and be done before you go to bed at night. Biltong, on the other hand, is dried as slabs and then sliced after drying, right as you're eating it. And also, it's dried under no heat, only airflow. So because of that, you have to be a little more clean with your process when you're doing biltong, and ultimately it can take a week to 14 days sometimes to dry biltong, depending on how thick the slices are and depending on how dry you actually like it. So with that, we'll get started on jerky, and we'll see you in the next video for biltong. Okay, so the first step of making jerky is you're going to want to make your marinade. So I'm not going to measure this live, so you don't have to watch all through all that. But we'll pour this all into a pot here, and I'm going to turn it up to high heat or medium-high heat if you like. Basically, there's going to be the recipe down in the description of the video, and that's going to be a real simple recipe that you can make. And I've made that specific recipe many times, and it turns out really delicious. You can adjust it with whatever you like. I'm throwing a couple of habanero peppers in this one because I like it a little bit spicier. But yeah, feel free to get creative with it. The couple things I would caution on is don't remove any of the salt and don't remove any of the sugar. Those are key curing ingredients that are going to help ensure that that the finished product is safe to eat. I've never seen anyone say to actually heat this after you mixed it together. I started doing this a few years ago because I wanted the flavors of everything to kind of infuse together. So I'll heat this up until it's basically simmering, then I'll turn the heat way down and let it simmer for about 10 minutes, and then let it cool overnight in the fridge before I actually cut up the beef and put it into the marinade. You can just make this just like it is, throw the beef in it right away, it'll be fine. This kind of takes a little bit of the bite off of it and gives it just a little bit more complex flavor. But don't take my word for it, you can try it both ways, or you can not do this at all. I don't know, whatever you like. Alright, so our marinade is all done. It's been in the refrigerator overnight, ready to actually start cutting the meat. So this is, I've chosen an eye of round. This is a whole eye of round, just from the grocery store. I got $2 a pound off of this, normally $6.99 a pound. I got this one $4.99 a pound. You may not be wanting to do an entire eye of round. The marinade recipe that I'm giving you is for 2 pounds. So if you're going to make for 8 pounds, you're going to need to do 4 times the amount. You don't want to skimp on the marinade because the marinade is what's making the meat safe to eat. As well as with jerky, it is actually being cooked sort of effectively in the dehydrator, which will be the next section of this video. So again, we've got a good sharp knife, we've got kitchen shears, Use kitchen shears to just cut this package open. I got a lot of feedback on that ribeye video about the cutting board sliding around. Most suggested that I put a wet towel underneath it. You can try that. In my case, I just put some sticky feet underneath it. So that's going to work just fine for what I need to do. And you can see it actually takes quite a bit of force to move that at all. So going to put on some gloves, not necessarily to protect the meat in this case, but because my marinade has quite a bit of habanero pepper in it, and just don't want to deal with the hassle of washing my hands many times to get that habanero off. Alright, so the knife that I've selected for this is my Chicago Cutlery slicing knife. Got this at Walmart. It was sharp when I got it, but that was a long time ago. It's recently been sharpened to 10,000 grit, so it should be more than up to the task of what we need today. This is an 8-pounder. I'm going to make half of it into jerky for this video and the other half into biltong in the next video. So the first thing I want to do is remove a lot of this fat. So the first cut I'll do sort of live here, and then I will fast forward the rest of it so that you don't have to watch all of that. Alright, and I'm going to cut that in half so that it'll fit into my pot here. I'm going to render fat from that later. And maybe I'll make a video on how to do that too. Alright, now some of you might like actually a little bit of fat in your jerky. If you do, that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But just know that the fat will go rancid first, so that is going to cause the product to not last as long. So I guess around here actually it doesn't last long anyway, so it probably doesn't really matter. But so I'm going to cut this thing in half, just so that I've got the part for the biltong set aside for later. Now I want to cut this into about inch thick slabs. So I'm going to turn this up this way, cut her in half this way. Okay, now I've got two slabs of about 2 inches each. I'm going to hold it down flat, keep your fingers up if you're going to do it this way, and just kind of slice it right down the middle. And there we go. 2 1-inch slabs. Same thing here. Fingers up. Keep them out of the way of the blade. Great. So now I'm just going to take these and cut them. When you're cutting this, if you're like me, you don't really like that tough leathery jerky, you're going to want to cut it across the grain. So that's going to, the grain is going this way in the meat. And as you cut that, when you have your finished piece of jerky, as you bite into it, it's going to kind of crumble apart. And then you get to control how long you're going to chew on it. If you like it chewy, you can cut it this way, and then you're going to have that grain in your slices, and that's going to make a nice tough jerky, if that's what you're into. So I'm going to cut these to about a little more than 3/8 of an inch, not little, more than 1/4 of an inch for sure. I wouldn't go 1/2 inch if you can avoid it. A lot of guides on how to make jerky will suggest that you partially freeze the meat. That is, put it in the freezer for maybe a half hour to 40 minutes before you start slicing it. There's definitely merit to that. I don't want to do that because, first of all, to do it right, you have to lay these all out flat so they're not stacked on top of one another, or they won't get cold enough fast enough. And I just don't have room in the freezer. But also, I've done this enough times that I don't really care. If you want to try and do that, you can put them on a cookie sheet in the freezer, as long as you have space. It gets a little bit hairy toward the end here. I'm just going to leave this chunk whole as it is. And I'm just going to put these kind of individually into the marinade, and I'm going to mix up everything that's in the marinade once I'm done here. Again, hands are gloved so that I don't get a lot of that habanero juice on my fingers. Alright, we are all done slicing. I'm going to then just kind of turn everything over in the marinade. Make sure it's coating everything nice and evenly. Then I like to press it down. This part probably doesn't matter, but it's just my sort of nervous tick. So now you're going to cover this with saran wrap or some tin foil or something. Cover it with something. If you have a container that has a lid, even better. So I'm going to leave this sit in the fridge for 24 hours to marinate. And then probably every 6 hours, I'm going to come and do this turning again to make sure that all the meat is getting covered with that marinade. You can marinate as little as 4 hours if you like. That should be fine. I like to do 24 hours. I think it gives it a little bit bolder flavor. So that's all up to you. And we'll come back when we're ready to put this in the dehydrator. Okay, so we're coming up on 24 hours of marinating. So marinating is done, ready to put these in the dehydrator. This dehydrator is Colzer brand. You can buy this on Amazon for about 160 bucks. There are lots of food dehydrators out there that you can buy. I used to have a Nesco that I liked a lot, but I like the drawer style more than I like the stacking tray style. So this seems to work really good. So got my tray. I'm going to just put it over this pan to control the dripping a little bit. And just going to take these and lay them out on the food dehydrator. You're going to give them a little bit of space in between them so that air can flow around them. And if you're not filling the dehydrator full, you might put the drawers in staggered, right? Like, you know, leave one space in between them for better airflow. But it doesn't matter, it'll work fine using every single drawer. So we got everything in the food dehydrator. Just now time to turn it on. The timer starts off at 24 hours. This is really only going to take like 6 hours. I'm going to do it at 155 degrees and come back in about 6 hours. Alright, so it's been about 6 hours. Jerky's all done. So I've got a tray with a paper towel set out. A lot of times it'll come out of there a little bit oily, and that'll help dry that off. So I'm going to shut the machine off. It takes a second to turn this off, but not a problem. Grab the jerky out And set that there. And just take the pieces out and put them on the tray. And then you're going to let it sit like that for, again, maybe 10 minutes. You can press it a little bit to improve the absorption, and then you're ready to bag it up. Hope you enjoyed the video.